Hello everyone, good morning, good evening. Today we are going to start the class for Spring and Spring Boot. And to learn about the Spring Boot, first we have to understand some basic concept of the Spring framework. Until or unless you will not understand what is the Spring framework and how it works, it will little bit challenging to understand about the Spring Boot framework. So I'm going to start from the framework. We'll cover some basic topic of the Spring framework, especially from the Spring Core and Spring MVC, and then we'll move to the Spring Boot. So the first question here, what is the Spring framework? First question is, what is the Spring framework here? So if you, anyone, any idea what is the Spring framework? So I can say that Spring is a lightweight, open source, non-invasive framework which is used to develop or which is used for building any kind of the Java application. Which is used to develop any kind of the Java application. So here I'm writing Spring is a lightweight, open source, non-invasive framework by which we can use it or which is used for building any kind of Java application. Once I'm writing any kind of Java application, it means that you can able to develop a standalone or desktop application. You can able to develop web application. You can easily develop the REST application. Even if you want to develop the Webflux or reactive programming based on the Spring, that is also possible. So that is the meaning of any kind of Java application. Now here you can see I mentioned Spring is a lightweight, open source and non-invasive framework. So let's understand each and every word here. What is the meaning? So first we'll understand what is the non-invasive. So we'll break each and every word and we'll try to understand what is the meaning of each and every word here. So anyone, any idea what is the meaning of non-invasive? So the meaning of non-invasive, it means that we are not going to extend or implement any kind of the predefined class or interface. So if you know that, as you know that if you are going to develop any kind of application based on other framework or other technology, suppose you want to create the servlet project, you want to create the program in the servlet. So if you want to create the web application based on the servlet or some project based on the servlet, somehow servlet will ask you to extend or implement their predefined interface or predefined classes. Until or unless you will not implement or extend their predefined interface and you will not override their method, you cannot able to achieve or you cannot able to create servlet project, or you cannot able to develop the web application based on the servlet. This rule is not only applicable in case of servlet. Even suppose if you want to create the project based on the struts, you want to develop your web application based on the struts framework, there also somehow we have to extend some of the predefined interface and we have to override their method, and then only we can able to create the struts project or we can able to create the web application based on the struts. But in case of Spring framework, they are saying, hey, this is the non-invasive framework. This is the non-invasive. It means that they are not ask you to extend or implement any kind of the class or interface. It means that Spring framework does not force a programmer or a developer to extend or implement any kind of predefined class or interface. So this is the meaning of non-invasive. The second word which I have here, that is a open source. So what is the meaning of open source? So once I'm talking about open source, so the meaning of open source, it is free for all and you don't need to pay any single rupees while creating or while using the Spring framework. Still, there are many applications, still there are many framework and many languages in the market available for which you have to pay some amount if you want to create the project based on that framework or based on that technology. The simple example I can say there is a framework known as GK. Okay, if I want to use the that framework, first I have to pay some money and then only I can able to use. That is not free of cost. So this Spring framework is saying, hey, this is the open source framework. It means that anyone can use this framework, and for that you don't need to pay any single rupees to anyone. And that is the meaning of open source. It means that it is free for all, free for all. No need to pay any single rupees to anyone. The next concept here, or the next word you can see, I mentioned that Spring is the lightweight. So what is the meaning of lightweight? So once I'm talking about lightweight, it means that it means that so let's understand how it is the lightweight. So First of all, as I mentioned, this is a non-invasive framework. It means that I'm not going to extend or implement any of the interface or class, and I'm not going to override any method. So somehow my class size or my class will be not heavy loaded. It will be the lightweight class. It will not be the heavy weighted class. It will be the very lightweight class because I'm not going to extend any of the predefined classes, or I'm not going to implement any of the predefined interface, and I'm not going to override any of the method. So somehow my class file size will be very small. The size of the class file will be very small, or somehow I can say that it will be the very lightweight class. It will not be the heavyweight class. The second thing I can say that the Spring work on the based on the POJO and POSI model. Okay, so this Spring work based on the POJO or POSI model, and the meaning of POJO or POSI model, it is nothing but it work based on the plain old Java object. What is the meaning of plain old Java object? So you have one class. Inside the class, you have the data member, and you have the just setter and getter. And if you have this kind of the class, that is known as POJO class. So somehow we have the very lightweight class. The other reason why I'm saying this is the lightweight, because I'm not going to add any extra container to run my application. I'm not going to add any extra library which I need to run my application. Like in other cases, like in case of struts or JSF or servlet, if you want to run your application, somehow you need some container. And to use that container, somehow you have to add some extra dependency. So somehow, finally, once you will build your application, the jar file of the project or the war file of the project, somehow it will be heavy, like the size of that jar file or war file will be little uh, bigger compared than the Spring framework. So if I'm developing any project based on the Spring framework, and I'm developing any project based on the struts, somehow the size of the jar file or war file for the struts and servlet or JSF will be little bigger compared than the Spring framework. Or we can say that compared than the Spring project framework, Spring project. So somehow I can say this is a lightweight framework. This is a lightweight framework and compared than the other framework. So this was the definition about the Spring framework. Now the next topic we are going to discuss the next topic, and somehow I want to discuss about some history about the Spring framework. I want to know what is the history of the Spring framework. So in the history, I want to know like when this Spring Boot has came into the picture, or who is the father of Spring framework. So I want to know who has developed this, or when the Spring has come into the picture. So the Spring has come into the picture, or it has been introduced in the year of 2003. And who has developed? So there was one person name is Rod Johnson. That person has developed this Spring framework. So the name of the person was Rod Johnson, and it has been introduced in the year of 2003. So somehow 21 year before from today. But the first release of the Spring framework, the first release Spring 1.x has been released in the year of 2004 itself. In the year of 2004 itself. So the first release of the Spring has come into the picture or into the market, or like developer start using this Spring framework from the since 2004 itself. So somehow Spring is not the new framework; it is very old framework. It is around 20-year-old framework. So this was the 1.x release. After that, the new release has came to the picture after 2 years of the Spring 1.x release. So the new release, the next release, Spring 2.x, that has come into the year of in the year of 2006, or we can say in the October 2006. So Spring 2.x has come into the picture in the year of 2006. And what were the new changes here? So they have changed the container. They have changed the container, and somehow given the they have given the they've given the new concept. The concept is nothing but like we can write the configuration file based on the XML. So before Spring 2.x release, there was no concept to write the configuration file inside the XML, or there was no XML based configuration concept was available in before Spring 2.x. So somehow the container has completely changed between the 1.x and 2.x, and they have introduced the new concept. The concept was how we can write the configuration file based on the XML, or XML based configuration file has come into the picture in Spring 2.6, sorry, 2.x. Then the next release has came into the picture in the year of 2007, and that is the release of Spring 2.5. So here again is between Spring 1.x and 2.x, there was some immediate or intermediate release was there, but I'm not going to discuss each and every release. I'm just want to highlight only those releases where we have some major changes or where the new concept has come to the picture. So here you can see like in Spring 2.5, it release came in the year of 2007 after the 1 year of 2.x release. And somehow here the first time they came with the new concept, that is the annotation based configuration. So before 2.5, there was no concept of the XML based configuration. I mean to say, if you want to write your configuration file, there was only one way, and the way was XML based configuration. But in the Spring 2.5, they came with the new concept, and the concept was annotation based configuration. And when the Spring 2.5 has come to the picture, so in the year of 2007. Now the next release. So the next release, the Spring 3.x, and again this came after the 2 year of Spring 2.5. So the Spring 3.x has came into the picture in the year of 2009, and here first time they came with the new concept, that is the Java-based configuration. So even Spring Boot completely worked based on the Java-based configuration. Spring Boot is not going to work on the XML-based configuration or annotation-based configuration. We'll see what is the XML-based configuration, what is the annotation-based configuration, and what is the Java-based configuration. We'll see the example on each and every concept, but not now. But just remember that once I will go to the Spring Boot is completely based on the Java-based configuration. Spring Boot is not based on XML-based configuration or annotation-based configuration. Now, after the Spring 3.x, the next release, Spring 4.x or 4.0, has came into the year of 2013. So after 40 years of the Spring 3.x, the new release of Spring 4.0 or 4.x has came into the picture. And here, first time they introduced the new concept, that is the REST controller annotation. So before Spring 4.x or 4.0, if you want to create your REST application, then the way was something different. There was no concept of annotation at the rate REST controller. There was a annotation known as at the rate REST, and there was a different annotation at the rate controller. So this REST controller is nothing but a combination of two annotation. One is at the rate controller, and second is the response body. We'll see what is the meaning, what is the use of at the rate controller, and what is the response body annotation. We'll see later. But somehow from the Spring 4.x, they came with the new concept, that is the at the rate REST controller, and somehow from Spring 4.x, creating the REST application in Spring is very, very easy. Then the next release is Spring 5.x or 5.0. This 5.0 release has came into the picture in the year of December 2017. So again, after 4 years of Spring 4.0, the Spring 5.0 has came to the picture. And here the first time they came with the approach, or the first time they have came with the new concept, that is nothing but reactive programming or web flux programming. So from Spring 5.x onwards, if you want to create the reactive programming, that is also possible in case of Spring framework. Okay. Now next, the latest release of the Spring framework, latest release of the Spring framework, that is the Spring 6.0. And this has been recently launched or recently released, and it has been released in the year of 2022, December 2022. We'll see what is the new changes in the Spring 6.x. So once we will start with the some programming in case of Spring, we'll show you what is the new changes and what were the changes in case of Spring 5.0. So we'll try to compare the Spring 6.0 with Spring 5.0, and we'll show you what all the new changes came in the Spring 6.0. So this was all about the history about the Spring framework. Okay. The next topic, yeah, one more thing. If you want to use the Spring framework, Spring, if you want to use Spring 6.0, or if you want to use the latest release of the Spring framework, make sure you have in your system, you must have the JDK 17. So the baseline to run Spring 6.0 in your system, you must have JDK 17 in your system. If you don't have JDK 17 in your system, you cannot able to run Spring 6.0 program, or you cannot able to develop Spring project based on the Spring 6.0. So sometime in the interview room, they will ask the question, which version of the Spring framework you are using. And suppose you are saying, I'm using the latest version of the Spring, that is Spring 6.0, then might be immediate, they will ask the question, interviewer will immediate ask the question, what was the Java version you are using? And if you say I'm using the Java 8 or Java 11 or Java 14, they can easily catch you that you are not using the latest version of the Spring framework, or might be you have never worked on the Spring framework. Because if I'm using the Spring 6.0, make sure I have to install JDK 17 in my system. Without JDK 17, we cannot run our program. We cannot able to run Spring 6.0 in our local. So this was about the what is a little bit introduction about the Spring framework, and this is the history about the Spring framework. In the next video or in the next session, we'll see why the Spring framework is famous, and then we'll see how we can achieve the loose coupling and what is the tight coupling, like what is the tight coupling and what is the loose coupling, and how we can write the tight coupling code in the core Java, and how we can convert the tight coupling code in the loose coupling in case of core Java first. So, okay, we'll see you in the next class.